What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Logic Bomb Podcast, episode 2. So we got all the new kinks out of the way. We're gonna hit the ground running this week. How you guys doing? Pete Zeronic joining me as always. What's up, guys?
Doing really good, thank you. I'm really happy with how the first episode's been received. So, thanks everyone for subscribing and watching. I think we're at like 10,000 views at the point of recording this, something like that. Also, little announcement, we're on Spotify at the moment, and hopefully coming to iTunes very soon. So for those guys listening on audio, you'll have some more options.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome. Pete knocked it out with the Spotify there, and we should be on Google Podcasts as well. I just wanted to throw that out there. Sorry there, Zeronic.
I was going to add as well, Zeronic, just go follow us. If you do use Spotify, just go and follow us over there. We'd really appreciate that.
I'm just happy we had a smooth launch, man. Like we got it on everything now, and now we can start diving into the deep end.
Well, we mentioned a couple of the outlets there that you can find us on, as far as Spotify, Google Podcasts here soon. But you can also do the audio-only version on SoundCloud if you prefer that app. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at LogicBombCast. That's our Twitter handle. We'll be using that to get a lot of community feedback on topics and questions and stuff like that. Obviously, subscribe to us on YouTube. Appreciate it. Let's dive into it today. We've got a lot of stuff to cover. Pretty much as soon as our episode went live last week, the SI playlist dropped. And then like the next day, we had a huge test server patch note. So we're going to talk about both of those in today's episode. Pete's got a quiz that's kind of like a community-driven quiz that he's going to throw at me and Zeronic. So that's going to be fun. We're going to talk about the Ddos, website people being sued by Ubisoft. That's kind of a big story. And then, of course, we're going to keep you up to date on everything going on the esports side of Rainbow Six Siege as well. So let's start out here with the SI playlist. This is the Road to SI 2020 playlist that came with the Battle Pass, both free version and premium version, as well as a special game mode on a unique map called Stadium. What did you guys think of the first weekend of the SI playlist?
Well, I granted the Battle Pass, so I played for 2 days before I figured out that you could get the Battle Pass points for anything else than the SI playlist. But it didn't really bother me because I really enjoyed it. So we played on stream for I think 3 days. The only thing I did was play SI playlist. I loved the map. So many new things, the see-through window, all that stuff. It was fun to see, and it took 2-3 games, and you start realizing that it's literally Hereford and Oregon just built into one map. So they took two maps that might not be too loved in the community, and I think the community feedback, like in general on it, seems to be that most people like the map. At least that's been my experience. We had a lot of fun on it.
To me, it's handy that you can rank it up outside of the SI playlist because I had my PC in pieces over the weekend and didn't get to play it. I logged on Monday thinking, I would like to have a go at this, and then realising that, of course, it's only a weekend thing. So I've got to wait till the time this podcast goes out. It'll be tomorrow, so Thursday. I can hop on for phase 2 of that. Obviously, I've been following the streams and your YouTube videos as well about it, but it seems as though it's been positively received, and there's some good cosmetics in there too. But like I say, I'm glad that I've been able to sort of rank up outside of the playlist.
Yeah, were you doing an upgrade, Pete, on the PC or just cleaning or
cleaning mostly? And I'll tell you what, the amount of dust that came out of that thing. I think I need to look at the water cooling because I'm getting like an odor from the PC, which is very slight, but it's like a plasticky chemical odor, and I really need to get to the bottom of that because I think it might be something to do with the water cooling or a very slight overheating that's concerning me at the moment. But I'm kind of due an upgrade.
I'd be shaking.
I'm kind of due an upgrade, to be honest with you. So that's something I'm thinking about this year as well.
I got two questions for the SI playlist thing. So the Battle Pass thing. Both you and I have been a little bit vocal about that on Twitter.
I was following that, by the way. I was following that from afar.
So we all get this free map. We get the free battle pass, and then you can decide to buy the premium. I can't remember what it was. Is it 800 or 1200 R6 credit or something to buy it?
I think wasn't it 800 just to get it, and then 1200 gets you like a couple levels, like
level
already
14, I think. Yeah. And you get half of it back or something by completing the whole thing, plus a guaranteed 2 legendary alpha packs, I think, and some extra stuff. So it's like you end up paying like $8 for that if you want it, right? And there's nothing in it. There's no paywall. Anyone can play the whole event. I was just disappointed that people were so furious over that. That really confused me.
What the criticism I saw in response to your tweet is the amount of monetization streams in the game. But I think one of you responded and said, look, the game's been out 4 years. They're not going to be able to run a game on its original purchase. They need an ongoing revenue stream.
I mean, both that and then there's not really a bad thing about it, in my opinion, with you could just not buy it. And I know that that's like the default answer, right? But even if there was 100 different ones, I would rather have it that way than ever need to pay for a map or an operator and be like gate kept from playing with my friends if they don't buy a year pass or something, right? It's all extra things you can buy for cosmetics and stuff like that.
The year pass is part of it, though, Zoronic, because people are saying, should some of that content be linked into their purchase of the season pass? Because it does feel like there is a lot of those monetization streams in the game when you do consider the seasonal events, the battle pass, the season pass, the individual cosmetics, the Pro League sets, the pilot program. There is a lot in there, right?
Yeah, but they all have. So if we think about what they do, the Pro League set, it helps fund Pro League. So if you're a big fan, you can do that. It's like buying a jersey, for your team, and you get to rep that. Kind of like the streamer chums as well. That's in some way a monetization thing as well, right? The events, I think, as long as we get the events for free, having bought packs there doesn't seem as an issue to me. The alternative, in my eyes, would be that you have to pay to play the event, and then you get all the skins for free. But I see a lot of people that play the events that don't want to buy the packs, so they're clearly getting joy out of it for no money.
Yeah.
But the problem is that they know they can get a skin that they would like, and that skin costs money, right? So I get it. It's you're trying to bait people into buy a skin because that's how you make money, and I assume they make millions, right? An event's gotta make quite a lot of money on skins.
But correct me if I'm wrong. Like, this battle pass is significantly cheaper than the last special event to buy all the packs, correct? Like, the last special event, wasn't it something like $60, $70 to buy every single pack, the complete set? And this battle pass is nowhere near that. So, okay, like, I understand. The only complaint that I will even entertain is that I bought the season pass, and in my opinion, this should be included in the season pass. I still don't agree with that, because when you bought the season pass, this was never promised to you. Like, this was it never said anywhere in the season pass when you bought it that you're going to get access to a battle pass if we decide to release one. Now, but people who are saying, hey, there's a battle pass and we feel like that should be included with the season pass, I'll entertain that. And if next year the season pass comes out and it doesn't say that the battle pass is included in there, then you can make your decision whether or not you buy the season pass based upon that.
Yeah.
Having that knowledge that the battle pass is probably going to be a thing again. But I don't know. I just have a really hard time criticizing this monetization when it's 100% cosmetic items and it's coming alongside free content that everybody who owns the game gets to enjoy, whether you buy the battle pass or not.
I agree.
Now,
I agree with you.
But besides that, this is a much better way. Like I've bought all the seasonal packs. You open the packs, you get the items, you're done. The battle pass was much more fun. Even though I completed it in one weekend, it was still fun to grind up, get the levels, see what you unlock next. You got some things back as far as credits and stuff like that. This was a much better way of doing business, in my opinion, and much more enjoyable for me as a player than just opening packs.
And yeah, the alternative that Zyronic outlined is so much worse. You get this, yeah, you can have the cosmetics, but you have to pay to gain entry to an event. I think that is so much worse. So I have to, like, I feel as though I have to play devil's advocate and outline what people's beefs are with the system, but I totally agree with the two of you. Moving forward, I think it is best to do it that way. I think the question is, when obviously they announce the season pass, what content is within that and what the price point is for it. But yeah, we'll just see what happens because that's yet to be announced.
I think I get where the frustration is coming from. I just don't think it's warranted in general. The same is going to be with whatever the year pass price is going to be and whatever it's gonna entitle or contain. There's going to be a price on it, and that price is probably going to be exactly what most people would pay, right? You want to get as many people to buy it as possible. It's normal business. As many people buy it as possible, but you also want to make it expensive enough that you make money.
Yeah.
And the real kicker is that I think everyone will understand that there has to be an income flow. There has to be in a game. If you want new content, if you want new operators, new servers, better anti-cheat, whatever you want, everything costs money. And that has to be earned somehow. And I don't believe it's going to be enough just in game sales. Because the guy who bought the game in year one that has paid or played for 5 years, right? Like, he might have gotten a few packs here, a few packs there, and that quickly amounts. Like, I've definitely bought Siege 10 times over. Definitely,
oh my God.
Right? Easily.
Yeah.
But if that wasn't there, where's that money going to come from? Because, I mean, it could be 5 years without any paid content, but I will guarantee you would get less of a game.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you. I think there's a portion of people out there who look at Siege and Ubisoft and the corporation as just another big business, and that anytime and that they view this as a way of another big business just doing something to try to milk more money out of their customers.
I mean, they probably are to some extent, but
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just I just don't think that it crosses a line into predatory. That's why I feel comfortable with it. As far as the actual event, like, I'd like to talk a little bit about that map because I made a video on this, but there were really 3 things that jumped out to me that I think are really fascinating about that map. Number one, the clear panels, like not necessarily the ones on the exterior. I feel like they were kind of gimmicky, but the one clear panel on the inside of that map had a lot of interesting play moments around it. Number 2, the barricades. The barricades on that map were 100% unable to double hit without attackers knowing. And I thought that was an interesting design element and something that I'm wondering, are they going to try incorporating that in the future? You guys know what I mean by that, right?
Yep.
I saw your video.
And then number three, the fact that there's like very, very little clutter, and there's very little like ambient, I guess, items you could say on that map, like the random coffee
clean,
mug.
right?
Yes, it's a super clean map. What do you guys think about those design elements? Like, did they jump out to you like they did to me?
I can't really comment on the first 2, having not played it, but the idea of a cleaner map without clutter, I think, is something that I've seen spoken about for the longest time, because aren't a lot, if not all, of those objects client side?
I think their destruction is, absolutely.
Yeah. So obviously that can lead into a lot of issues in game where you feel perhaps you've got this sort of really soft cover that you feel has broken line of sight, but perhaps it hasn't on your opponent's screen. So that's perhaps something that they are looking at for future maps. Now, obviously, something comes into the aesthetic quality of that. We're not talking about competitive nature of Rainbow Six Siege here, but actually playing on a map that feels like it's a lived-in building, that it's got some books and bits and pieces like that. But the downside is when you start talking about the competitive nature of a game, that will be an issue, and the particle effects that come with destroying them as well.
I mean, I'd be a massive fan of that becoming a staple of any pro league at any high level game. But it's also an insane thing to ask for or demand. I feel like I would truly love it if that became a thing. But you're basically removing a third of Siege, right? You'd make all the cupboards completely square, no weird round triangular angles. Like hallways would be clear with maybe one box on the left or the right that you could hide behind, and it all of a sudden turns into this like low polygon
low
FPS
texture
game that exactly like we're playing some old Call of Duty CS Quake mix all of a sudden. It was really enjoyable playing it on Road CSI, and I would really like it in competitive. I don't think it should ever be entertained for casual, unranked, or even ranked. I think it's too extreme to clean it up like that. Maybe we could have a 5v5 queue mode, as we've talked about before, where the map's in there or that way, and then we can have a bigger difference between the top level of play and the rest of the casual community. I'm not going to speak on behalf of anyone there, but I don't think most people would enjoy it if Siege just got completely cleaned down and right. It's just these flat texture walls. Although it is damn enjoyable to play on.
It makes things simpler.
Yeah,
and I think okay, so you take that element. I feel like removing that stuff favors attackers because it gives defenders less random spots where they can hide and be covered up by a random item. The barricades is another thing that change would be a buff to attackers, in my opinion. Defenders couldn't double hit a window without attackers knowing it. What do you guys think about that? Is that something you've ever thought about in the game before? Like, do you think that that's a mechanic that should be looked at? Should defenders be able to double hit a window barricade without attackers knowing it?
The little jump out monkey in me says that it should stay like that. But you have a very, very good point on at least there should be some sort of indication that something might happen.
Maybe the glass breaks.
Like right now on let's take Cafe, the top windows on Cocktail. You can prep both of those windows and the glass doesn't break, right? In all fairness, though, as a defender, you always want to break the glass when the round starts because then you can hear when they repel. But even then, if the window is covered up with a barricade and you have prepped it, so it's all the windows where the barricade is inside going past the bottom of the window, right? Mm-hmm. Those are the real issue. I think there should be some sort of easy to see visual from outside when a barricade has been in any way, shape, or form touched. Or maybe just have it so, I don't know, it would be ridiculous if they changed color, but you get what I mean? Like some extreme, easy to spot thing, right? So you know when something's been tampered with. A good thing on Road CSI that happened was that Echo Drones, Valkyrie cams, and everything kind of automatically got a nerf because there's way less stuff, as you mentioned, to hide it behind, right?
Yeah.
It's much easier to spot. I do think there's a little bit of a thing with the map that no one's realized is that everyone loves the map right now, or at least everyone I've talked to loves the map right now. I think this is going to be the exact opposite of most other maps, where if it stayed in for a long time, people would get so sick of it because of like no strats have really developed, right? Like we haven't had pro teams messing around on it. But imagine the amount of intel you can get with all those windows, both the exterior ones and the one you have inside the building. A little bit of thought into it, some mirror windows, maybe some deployable shields. Now you can stand there, play behind the bulletproof window with smoke, and you never have to throw a bad smoke ever. You have a mirror window the size of, a normal wall.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's been abused enough that people have gotten sick of it. But I think if it stayed in or became a stable map and rank like some people have asked for, it would need a few changes. Because it seems like the maps that people hate to start with, once they get through the competitive rotation, they get a little bit more liked. Because now we have some sort of ideas on how to attack them. Mm-hmm. And then at some point the meta goes stale, or they get out of Pro League, and then people start disliking them again. Because a lot, even when you do your placement matches and you're fairly low in the rank, you can see that most people have the same idea of how to attack sites, and most of them are your average day basic competitive take. I think that will hurt the road to SI if that map was to stay for a long time.
Yeah. I kind of agree with you, and I got a lot of feedback on that video that I made. People saying like it's a run out heaven and stuff like that to play into your point there. So, but I'm really I think it's really cool that they did that. I think that they're experimenting with that. I think that's some ideas that they've had, and I'm reading into it that way. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's like ideas that they've already dismissed as bad ideas, and they said, "Well, throw them in here because this doesn't matter." But I'm reading into it as this is stuff they have thought about, and they're putting it in here to see what kind of feedback they get. So yeah, interesting stuff there. Do you guys want to move on to the quiz, or anything else on the SI playlist there?
I'm good with making a fool out of myself in the quiz.
All right, Pete, take us away on this quiz.
All right, so while I just explain it, I don't know if you want to get a pen and paper, just so you can keep track of where we are. So
I got my notepad up here though.
Oh my, I need pen and paper for this.
Do we need to write rules?
Just open up a Word
Holy
document
cow.
or something. But what it is, we're thinking about maybe just like doing a quiz on here. Not necessarily every episode, but from time to time, and just keeping track of the winners. And what I've done is I put a tweet out yesterday, and I asked people to vote for their favourite defensive weapon. So the quiz will be, I'm going to ask these two to name what they think the community's voted for, just to see if they're, in sync with the community and what their feelings are. Bearing in mind as well that, the quiz doesn't ask people what their rank is or what platform they play on, so you need to consider that. And then we'll go through it, and then the first person to get the answer wrong, so to pick a weapon that isn't in the top 10 defender primary weapons, loses. If we get all 10 and you nail it, then we have a draw. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you to go one at a time, and we're going to pick who goes first in a second, and we're going to go through and see if you can guess the top 10 defender weapons as voted for by the community. And I took down these responses about an hour ago, but we need to pick who goes first, so we can either toss a coin or we can answer a simple question of pre-prepared. Should we do that?
I'd say the question.
All right, now I'm going to ask the question. You can come in at any time and answer this. It's really easy, this question. To come in and answer it, I want Zyronic to say Z or Get Flanked to say G, and whoever I hear say it first gets to go, but you only get one go at this. You can't say, oh, it's this. No, it's that. You get one go, okay?
Okay.
So it's about speed. It's really easy. Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, so I want G or Z, okay? That's your buzzer. Which Polish operator was introduced into Rainbow Six Siege during Operation White Noise?
G. Zofia.
You get to go first. That's the correct answer.
Right.
See, it's really easy, that one.
Yes.
So we're looking for the top 10 best defensive weapons in Rainbow Six Siege as voted for by the Logic Bomb community. Now, you guys, if we do these quizzes in future, we're going to tweet them out. That's what I did. They don't have any idea what the responses are because it wasn't a tweet poll. I did it on a website, and they can't see the answers. It doesn't tell you the answer when you vote. All right? So
are you
primary weapons,
are you reading the question to us the exact way you asked the community? Exact wording?
I'll give you the exact wording because that's a really good point.
Okay.
Hang on. Let me pull that up on here.
Because there's a difference between the best and your favorite.
Right. You're quite right. Hang on. Let me pull up my favorites. Just keep talking for a second.
Okay. Also, if we get... Okay, so if I say the 417 and it's actually the 416, does that count against me? Like...
I feel like it should, because the 417 is another weapon in Rainbow Six Siege. Do you know what I mean? It's like... That's the DMR.
I think if you can mention if you can explain what operator it is and what gun it is.
I don't know. I feel like being ruthless, to be honest with you. But okay, no.
Okay,
You're all right.
We have to name. That's brutal. So I can't just say Jaeger's carbine.
No, you gotta get the caliber, the barrel length, magazine size,
the date of manufacture
pull.
and design. Okay, so the question was, what is the best capitalized defender primary weapon in Rainbow Six Siege, and people were allowed to vote for a few. So, like, people might have voted for 2 or 3.
Okay, so you were asking what's the best, not what's their favorite.
Right, I'll read it out. What is the best defender primary weapon in Rainbow Six Siege with best capitalized? And then I did put select your favorites, plural.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, so that's how the question was asked. And this is going to lead into talking about the test server patch notes in a bit. So there was a little bit of thought behind why I chose this question this week. All right, so Get Flanked gets to go first.
I'll go the Alda.
Okay, hang on. I know if it's right or wrong, but
I'll write it down.
If that's not in the top 10, I uninstall this podcast.
It's not going live.
Okay, that's correct.
Is that number 1, or does it?
Do you want to know where it came as we go through?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Number 2.
Okay.
416.
Correct. I'm leaving a little gap
Number
because
1.
we might add in sound effects afterwards.
Okay.
That's number 1.
Okay. The TCSG 12.
Oh.
The DMR shotgun.
Oh, I think you lost.
Correct. That's in there.
Okay.
That is number... Hang on. 7. Yeah. You're pushing it. Over to you, Mr. Z.
MP5.
Which one?
Mm.
The MP5. The one just called MP5. Doc Rook's gun.
Okay.
Not the K, not the SD.
Unfortunately, for Get Flanked, that's correct.
I was going to say that.
That's
one.
number 4.
That's hurting me.
There's one above that hasn't been mentioned.
MP7.
Ooh.
Correct. Number 3.
That was a good one.
With 8% of all the votes.
Lesion's gun.
It's a good one. Good answer.
Legion's gun. He's got a couple.
It's SMG. Legion's SMG.
The T.
If you put the shotgun in there, no.
It's on the list. Not necessarily amongst the winners, but yeah, that's correct. That's number 9, the T5. With 3% of the vote.
Wait, how many do we have now? That's 6 guns so
There's
far.
1,
we got 4 guns left.
Yeah, there's 4 remaining. Yeah, correct. You got 4 here.
Okay. I'm scared that this isn't going to be on here, but it should be. And it's Walmai's AUG. It's not going to be on there because it's too new, but that absolutely should be on there.
Or
is it your answer or not?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
No, yeah.
No, yeah.
You should be stuck with that answer anyway. You lose, man. It's not on there. It's I can tell you where it fell.
Can I take a guess on a few?
Yeah. Whammo's AUG is not in the top 10. It's number 12. Only by a couple of votes.
Oh, damn. That was closer than I thought.
Yeah, Zyronic wins this episode of the quiz. Thrilling stuff.
Well, shouldn't he? I went first. Shouldn't he have to name one now?
GG easy.
Well, if you want to name...
He should have to...
It was the first person to get an answer.
I think I can get one.
Zyronic has one because you got the answer wrong.
I think
but I had to go an extra time.
I think I can get an extra one correct though.
Okay, yeah,
Ronin.
try it. Because the one Ronin. I was gonna go ahead, and then I'll say the one I was gonna say instead of that one after that.
The Ronin, Mozzie's Ronin.
I bet that's not on there, but again, it should be.
It's not on there.
That's definitely on there. What?
Yeah. No.
What about the SMG 11?
No.
It's not a primary.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's not okay. You asked that. Primary.
Okay, spill the beans.
Spill the beans. Okay, so the ones you missed, number 5 is the Commando 9, Mozzie.
Okay.
You missed a really obvious one as well, the K1A.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This one I thought was fairly surprising. The Vector, 45 ACP, so that's mirrors.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of surprising.
I didn't think that would go that far up.
That was number 8 with 4%. And then the 10th answer that I think was incredibly hard, and it only just snuck into the top 10 as well, was the M590A1 shotgun.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I agree with that, by the way, that the community put that in there. But the AUG after the potential Jaeger nerf, will be the best gun on defense if you exclude attachments.
Yeah, I think coming up.
So,
yeah, quite. I think it might have been the view, you know, that
just how little it's been in the game so far.
Yeah, and the optic on it. So yeah, that's the top 10. So just to recap, Jaeger's 416 with 18%. The Alder, which also had 18%, but it was actually a couple of votes behind. MP7, Bandits, MP5, Commando 9, K1A, TCSG 12, the Vector, T5, and the M590A1. That's the community's top 10 defensive primary weapons. Now, well done, Zyronic. You know, you've smashed him. He's you know, he's losing badly already.
I feel so proud.
Yeah, I would be. Interestingly, because we're going to talk about the patch notes now, I just wanted to tell you a couple of things. Firstly, the FMG9, Smoke's FMG9, how many votes do you think that got?
Oh, that's difficult, because if you look at everyone playing above a certain level, and I don't mean this in a bad way, it's not being played. It's not a bad gun. You're a little bit of an annoying Smoke if you play that one, right?
I would say 0, Pete. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I would say 0 votes.
0? Okay, this is for a bonus point. What about you?
How many votes were in this whole thing in total?
Let's have a look.
How many people actually voted? Because
968 votes, but people were allowed a couple.
Good. It has, I don't know, 42.
One.
It's the answer to
has
everything.
One vote.
One.
And when I checked,
I was the closest without going
I
over.
checked last night, and I checked last night, and it didn't have any, and I thought, bloody hell, that's going to be interesting. And then when I checked before we went live, it just had the one vote.
That's it. So that's funny, because it's not a bad gun, right? The reason
it's about to be a really good
gun.
Yeah, but even before that, it has almost no recoil. It's super controllable, fast ADS time, but you can't play it because you're playing Smoke, and if you don't run a shotgun, no one else gonna do it, right? That's kind of the mentality. Plus, like, your job as Smoke is to stay far back and not frag out. You just need to smoke the plant off and then chill. I thought we were gonna see more aggressive Smoke play with Mossy Mute coming in and drones being locked down more. It gives up a little bit of freedom for that, and especially Legion being in play. But maybe when it gets buffed, maybe we have more secondary shotguns now.
Yeah,
I think some of the reasoning. We're moving on from the quiz now. We have a winner this week, but I think some of the reasoning for the buff to that weapon wasn't necessarily for Smoke, because they were talking about. Flanked will recall this. They were talking about Nook. Before, during the last balancing sprint, and it's something, obviously, I mean, I suspect when we see the next designer notes, we're just going to see a continuation of her being quite lowly down there on the pick rate, and so they're trying to obviously bust that. And then they dig really deeply into the stats. They can probably see that it doesn't get used a lot anyway, even with Smoke, which is perhaps why they recycled it. That particular weapon with Nook in the first place, because they've got this weapon in the game that no one's using, which is a shame. So that's probably why that gun's up there for this particular buff.
That's an interesting, dangerous conundrum to be in, right? Because Nook's like, she's on this edge of, if you push her a little bit more, she will become immensely strong and one of the best entry fraggers in Siege. You can barely hear her. There's almost always someone on site on cam, and you need to win one gunfight and you're in. And it's terrifying if she starts becoming good enough that she can, normal Ash main her way in. The few rounds we've seen her in Pro League where she's done well, she's absolutely demolished everything, right? And sure, you can say that, well, they were sloppy, no wire there, no goo mines. You could have seen it on the white noise on the echo drones, whatever.
Yeah.
But audio cues and camera cues, we rely so much on them, and she doesn't need that much of a buff before she tips that whole scale. It's the same with Warden. Like, if you buff him a little bit more to where, he can see through smokes or flashes for a longer period of time, it's such a fine line, man.
Yeah, and I know that the pro players felt that way when it came up before, the idea of buffing her, and I think they were coming up. Their response was ways of nerfing
They're like,
her.
no, yeah.
Do you remember that, Flanked?
Well, I would even say if Nook is good, she will be infuriating. If Nook is picked a lot and you die because of her utility, it will be a frustrating death.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because you'll be like, I didn't hear her, I didn't see her. I hope, and we're not dealing with that right now because she's not that good. But if she gets to a point where she is good, that I think that will be the general consensus is like a death to a Nook will be a frustrating death.
Invisibility mechanics tend to do that, whether it's a goo mine, an echo drone, or an invisible person on a camera.
She just has to be kept. She has to be kept low enough where it's something you can pull out to surprise people, but it has to be a gamble to bring her. She should never be allowed to bring. I mean, she doesn't really have much utility, right? She can't remove Maestro camera, stuff like that. But she can never be at a point where bringing her doesn't put your team at a little bit of a disadvantage.
Yeah.
Because if you can ever afford to bring her, and she gets that's not going to be the play.
Picking her is akin to picking a Kapkan on defense. It's just something you have a go and see if you can get away with it and, surprise.
Yeah, but I said at least Kapkan has utility, right?
Yeah.
Like, he actually has C4 impact nades and a really good gun and stuff. And
like, the Wind Delta also supports Kapkan much more than a Nook pick.
It's true.
But no, I agree with your point process. There. If the other team is expecting a Kapkan, it's pretty easy to deal with.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying there. I honestly do. Nook's a tough one, but honestly, like, to go back to your point there, Zeronic, the FMG 9 has 0 recoil.
Yep.
If they buff that like they're talking about, I haven't done the math, but it's going to bump it up to probably...
It'll be a 3-shot down instead of a 4-shot.
Which will probably put it into the top tier of defender weapons. At least the top 25% of defender weapons, I would say. And I'm just doing this I'm off the top of my head. Like, I'm not. It may work out differently on paper. So if you have a weapon on defense that has 0 recoil and a good damage output, that's a recipe for success. So yeah, I mean, it could be a completely different story.
It has really good hip fire. So if you don't need the shotgun for making rotates, it's not completely insane to bring the FMG9 with decent fire rate, a laser on it, some quick reload, and good hip fire, and play that aggressive with your smokes. Yeah. Because people taking 1 or 2 smoke ticks, now they only need 1 bullet and they're dead, right?
Yeah. Let's get into the patch notes on that topic, because I mean, obviously we're alluding to the fact that in the test server right now there are some patch. There's a patch in there right now where they're testing out a lot of nerfs and buffs to different operators. One of those things is the FMG9 is getting a significant damage buff. Let me look at exactly how much that is.
It's 30 to 34.
Okay. 30 to 34. Thank you.
FMG9.
For that. Yeah, so I mean that's significant. There's a lot of changes in there. Some of which are operator specific. Some of which are just that they're in general lowering or increasing the ADS time. I always get that backwards. So they're making it the time it takes for you to ADS longer across the board. The most significant change is coming to the SMG machine pistols, where they're basically tripling the time that it takes in order for you to ADS with a secondary SMG. So the SMG-11, SMG-12, CZ-75, those are going to be nerfed pretty hard if this makes it into the live build. What jumps out to you in these patch notes? Because it actually is pretty substantial what all's in here.
There's a few, isn't there? Sorry, go on, Zeronic.
No, I was just I can speedrun like opinions on almost all of them real quick. I don't think taking away the ACOG from the Maestro is going to change that much. I think we're going to see the same as we did with Ash. The good players stay on them, and when Delta goes up, pick rate goes down. Echo nerf, I don't agree it's the right way of doing it by buffing Dokkaebi, because I think Dokkaebi is much stronger than Lion was when he was the strongest. So you just made at least for top tier of play, you just make Dokkaebi extra terrifying, and you have no way of stopping plants now with Echo, which not the play in my opinion. Jaeger nerf, great.
Really?
I mean, no issue with that. That gun he has almost 100% pick rate, right? Like, he's up there. I don't see what else they can do. If you nerf his ADSs, then there's no real point in bringing them. If he only has 2, not enough. If he only sets 1 but has 3, not enough. So you gotta hurt him in some other way, and he doesn't have the impact nades you can take away. You could either have taken a lot of ammo away or lowered the damage.
Yeah.
Because you can't lower the recoil on it, or up the recoil on it. We don't want another Ela gun going into that. Ela's SMG, in my opinion, pretty useless up until or after the massive recoil nerf. I don't know how it is in console. I tried it on TTS. It seems a little inconsistent. It seems like sometimes it's almost no recoil for the first 16 bullets, and other times it seems like it's the old one. I'm not sure what's happening there.
Well, let me ask you this on that topic, because I experienced kind of the same thing that you're seeing there. Do you think that there's something messed up to where it's literally the first 16 bullets out of the mag and it doesn't reset after you let off the trigger? Because I almost felt that way.
That's actually I never considered that.
I felt like if I had a fresh mag and I shot, it had 0 recoil. But as soon as I pushed the trigger again, it had the old recoil.
So 16 per mag.
Pretty much.
I don't know if they even. I don't know if they even have if they know what bullet is being fired. So I don't know if that is even possible. Maybe.
Yeah.
I expect they add like bloom based on each consecutive shot, right? Like spread added per shot. But I just tried in the T-Hunt and I did a few lines on the wall, and some of them were really easy to control, and others, all of a sudden, your aim jumps like 3 heads to the left and then 3 heads to the right, and there's no way you're controlling that reliably. I'll never be a fan of potentially getting a headshot because of a lucky fire rate. I would rather have all recoil be twice as bad vertically, but almost nothing horizontally, because at least that's something you can control and deal with. The side-to-side recoil kind of leaves luck a little bit too much into it.
Yeah.
And yeah, not a fan of that recoil system. But the ADS time, I'm a massive fan of. And I think a lot of people are going to hate it. And I think that's great. It slows down Siege a little bit, and I have no issue with that.
Here's your argument. Like how? Okay, so they slow down ADS speed. Ideally, you will think that will slow down the game, and that it's going to nerf the people who want to just go and run around the map and frag out. You would think it would give an advantage to a person who is holding an angle versus a person who's running into that angle. Mm-hmm. But so long as you can crouch walk through the map as a Ashe, make very little noise, have your sights up, and cover ground fairly quickly, in my opinion, how big of an effect is this going to have on the game?
Massive effect on secondaries. You should not be. I mean, just my opinion. It's not that it's right or wrong, but I don't think that Smoke. I think Smoke is one of the most broken defenders when you think about it. Like what he can do, his utility shotgun. He has an SMG-11 that slays, and you can insta ADS with it. Your secondary should be your second choice, never your primary. It's a good way of balancing, in my opinion, and it also gives an option to actually run the pistols on some of the operators that have semi-auto SMGs or full auto SMGs as secondaries, right? Bearing 9, SMG-12, SMG-11. I don't know. I think it's cool if you have an option there. And there's a good reason to pull the pistol out, because the pistols do a lot more damage. They ADS faster. They're just not, they're not these melting machines that the SMG-11 is. It's like one of the fastest times to kill in game, right?
I think it's the highest DPS, potential DPS in the game.
AK-12, I think, but
AK-12 it's up there. The SMG-12 and SMG-11
they're
are both
really
up
strong
there as far as maximum DPS at close, point blank.
I think it's fine that gets slowed down, and I mean whether you have an an Ashe crouch walking through the map, that kind of goes into one of the reasons I didn't think Lesion should, for example, get nerfed too much. Because I agree, it's super annoying to have people that make such a big risk of walking through an entire hallway without really dealing with anything, to then try to push straight side crouched, because you ignore them and get surprised because it seems like bad value from them, right? It's too risky. So you get caught off guard, which in all fairness is just your fault. You could have, there could have been cams, there could have been mines, there could have been wire. But when that Ashe gets caught in the middle of the hallway and she has to flick around or she has to sprint into cover and re-peek, that becomes harder now with ADS time. And it also makes a better or bigger difference between having angled and vertical foregrip.
Yeah, that's a great point. A big buff to angled grip here, right?
Yeah, and
because angled grip works off of a percentage. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a much bigger difference.
I think angled grip should be a lot faster than it is, and I think vertical grip should help a lot more with recoil. So there was a much bigger difference in your choice. If you want to hold an angle and have almost no recoil, then you go with vertical. If you like playing fast, well, then you take the chance with angle, and you have horrible recoil, but you're really fast with ADSing.
I think one of the other key points about those changes is just from what they've written, it looks as though it might have been an unintentional change in the first place. This sort of reversion back. I remember making a video about some of those animation changes and how it changed some of the recoil in the game, and then obviously the ADS times were a thing as well. So it just seems as though maybe that was unintentional from the beginning, and they just really want to get it back to where it was. But obviously some people are used to it after Ember Eyes anyway. But I think I tend to agree that I do like the trade-off of it being a bit slower, and perhaps that slowing the game down a little bit. But you can have, if they could buff, say, the angled grip a bit more, and people want to still play that style of game, they can do, but obviously they're just going to have to cope with more recoil. So,
well, let's be fair, the difference in time, it's 100 milliseconds for pistols, for example.
Yeah.
So, like, and it's 50 milliseconds for shotguns, for example, right? The big kicker is the 250 milliseconds different on SMGs. LMGs is 50 milliseconds, 100 milliseconds on SMGs, and 100 milliseconds on DMRs, and 100 milliseconds on assault rifles. So, I mean, it's noticeable, it really is, but it's not like you go from you have no chance to destroying everybody, right? Like,
right.
It's not that drastic. It just means if you peek out in a hallway, you should probably be ADSing as you peek, and you can't just. I'm sure we've all seen people hipfire jiggle peeking with the SMG 12, right? Mm-hmm. And they wait to see people, and then they ADS.
Yeah.
I don't think that's that shouldn't be it. You should put yourself at risk to take that fight.
Anything else on the TTS patch notes that you wanted to comment on? I mean, I've got some.
Just the Jaeger one.
Okay.
I'm in favour of that. I'm not entirely surprised by it. I suppose again that could be something. I suppose he was off the charts on the last designer notes, and I suppose we're going to see they've not seen any change since Wamai came in. That's probably something they've seen in their data set. And when I saw that, I was thinking, I reckon that they wanted to nerf him around the time they took the ACOG off Ashe, but this Wamai's probably been in the works for quite some time, right? So they probably thought, look, we'll just leave it. Wamai's coming along. We'll see if it has an impact, and if it doesn't, then we can always, make changes to Jaeger. But it's one of those things, because you talk about balancing, and truly, he's not really an overpowered operator. But he is strangling out the defensive roster, taking so much of the pick rate. And when you create a game and you create so many different operators and so many opportunities for different things to happen in game, to have an ever-present operator kind of reduces the diversity of play a little bit. So I think that's probably some of the thinking behind that. it's not necessarily that he's so incredibly powerful, but it's just you can slam down your utility and then like there's no risk of it.
Also on paper he's extremely powerful, and statistically as well, because his gun wins more fights than almost any other defender gun.
Yeah, it's the best defensive weapon. I mean, that or the older. I mean, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's the M4 thing with it as well. Like every game that has an M4 looking platform always gets picked a lot. They could put this gun on 20 health, 20 H or 20 damage, and it would still get picked a lot. Right?
Yeah.
But statistically, the gun just wins a lot of fights.
I mean, and damage-wise, it's not going to be a big difference, is it? 43 to 38 at close range. It's still going to be 3 shots.
I did the math. It's going to put it exactly, the damage output, at least at maximum damage output, will be exactly what the Commando is. So that's still a good gun.
I think.
Don't get me wrong, but it's not what it used to be.
Yeah, I think it might have been.
And then it has worse recoil than the Commando.
3 shots to kill, whereas now I think it's 3 shots to down. Like, I haven't tested it in game. I'm just working this out. I think it'll be 3 shots to down rather than an instant kill, and then at range maybe an extra bullet to down.
I think it goes up on 2 and 3 almost, right? It's going to become 1 more bullet on them than it currently is, and that's a pretty big deal, to be honest, because a lot of the people or a lot of attackers that are in the current meta is 2 armor and above.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I pretty much agree with you guys on everything you've mentioned. Like, the only thing that I'll really add to, one thing I want to mention as far as the Blackbeard buff, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's only when his shield isn't equipped that his weapon will now ADS like a normal AR would.
I haven't tested it, but that's the wording, isn't it?
That's not a big deal. Like, people are kind of making a big deal out of that. That's not a big deal.
Well, that isn't even a buff. It's a fix.
Right.
I agree with that.
Right. It was actually supposed to be like that. It was just bugged that you had the lowered ADS time. It's the same with shields, right? When you put your shield on your back, you still have normal ADS speed on the pistol. So that would be the equivalent for Blackbeard there.
I agree with what you were saying about Maestro as well. I think it'll have even less of an impact on as what Ash losing ACOG did, because the fact that
probably
you can just spam that thing means that all you really need to know is the general direction somebody is. You don't need to know that their head is right there. You just need to know that they're in that direction, and you can just, spray. So I don't really see that being that big of a nerf. Okay, I agree with you on Doku. I would not have nerfed Echo in that way. I agree. Echo needed something, in my opinion. But this is, unless Echo is standing on top of a mute jammer, Dokkaebi completely nullifies him now. Like, other than, completely nullifies him. Not only can she turn him into a weakness by hacking his cameras and, allowing the attackers to see from them, but if Echo's trying to stop a plant, it's as simple as make a phone call, and Echo cannot deny that plant as long as the planter starts planting as soon as Dokkaebi makes the call. And that's I don't know.
She doesn't.
It's kind of curious. I mean, it's going to require some coordination, but I agree with what you're saying. Here's the thing. Dokkaebi's global ability, the phone call, is overpowered. The only reason it's not a bigger issue in the game is her pick rate. If Dokkaebi is picked in 70% of the rounds, imagine in 7 of the 10 defensive rounds that you play, you receive 2 phone calls in each of those rounds. That is a nightmare. And this game will be a lot less enjoyable to play if that becomes a reality. And that's what I'm afraid of. And I don't think we're there yet, because her weapons are still not going to appeal to the average player, in my opinion. But her utility is getting to the point with those frag grenades and with how strong those phone calls are, that her utility is getting to the point now where I'm looking at her like, I'll deal with the low fragging capability. I just don't want to live without that utility every round.
I think Dokkaebi should stay like she is. Have her nades taken away. I don't think the nades belong in Dokkaebi, because now you can call, you can check if there are people there, and then you can nade yourself, right? The fact that she has a DMR and the C set, on the C set, by the way, give that damn thing a decent sight by now, please. The DMR is still, like, the skill ceiling is still kind of high on it, on any semi-auto weapon, right? That's why, even though the TSG is insane, there's still a lot of people that struggle with using it. She probably shouldn't have grenades, and she definitely shouldn't be buffed to nerf Echo. That's my whole problem.
That's the thing.
I heard a lot of interesting ideas with you could make Echo's drone louder. So it's just way louder, right? Or you could make it so Echo has to be on his drone for it to even be in the roof. It wouldn't stick to the ceiling unless he's active on it. That way you can hide it underneath cars or underneath closets, and you can still have people get on them and check, but it will only jump up and be invisible when it hits the roof.
I like that.
There's plenty of things you could do that was interesting.
So many things.
I like that.
Yeah,
or
I agree.
you could buff a weak attacker that isn't Dokkaebi to deal with it.
You know,
you could make something to other attackers, but not buff one of the strong
that's
ones.
probably the thought process, though, isn't it? That you can kill two birds with one stone. Here you have a slightly overpowered defender. Slightly not overpowered. That's the wrong wording. Slightly overpicked presence, slightly, and then you have an attacker that's underpicked. So you got underpicked and overpicked. So that's the whole two birds with one stone logic. But maybe another way is just, a lot of people don't like playing DMRs. So maybe, because I agree with Flanked, I actually don't want to see more Dokkaebi. She's one of those operators that is just really cheeses me off. It's a cheesy operator, and I just feel it's like Flanked last week talking about Legion. He's an annoying operator to play against, and I think Dokkaebi's kind of like that as well. So maybe, change Echo the way you've suggested. I like that. And then why don't improve Dokkaebi's ability, but look again at the primary weapon and maybe even reduce the power of her special ability so it is actually less annoying. If you want her picked more, I think half the problem is the DMR, not the power of the ability. Do you see what I'm...
Just give her a P90?
Yeah, but you would... Yeah, but listen, you would have to reduce the...
weapon. Give her the nuke.
Yeah, but you would have to reduce the ability, the logic bomb. You'd have to nerf that.
Make it only apply to a radius or something. I mean...
Yeah, exactly.
Or let her stay on it for the 7 seconds that it calls.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Entertain the idea of maybe taking drones away from attackers, and use that as a way of balancing again. I assume it's something that they probably don't want to do, and I get why. It's a big part of Siege. You have your drones, all of that. Fair enough. But Twitch already kind of messes with that, because Twitch's drones are different. She has them in the prep phase. I don't see why it's so insane to potentially have Dokkaebi and Lion not have drones. Yeah. They have global abilities that give a lot of info. Take that away, now someone else has the drone. They have to use their ability. So the strength that they brought is halved already, right? She's still going to be annoying to play against, but the value that the attackers get out of it is going to be less, so people are not going to get stomped as much as they might be.
I think that here's... To bring it back to Echo, the thing that I think they really missed the mark on this, to put it brutally, because I think that the reason he's banned so much, that's where his presence is coming from their piece, because he's a really heavily banned operator in ranked. The reason he's banned so much is the helplessness that you feel against an Echo. That's my opinion, and maybe I'm missing the mark here. But in my opinion, more people ban Echo because they don't want to run into that situation where they're being constantly pinged and they can't find where they're being pinged from. That helpless feeling. And also the helpless feeling of I'm walking down a hallway and I get lit up and drunk, and this doesn't fix that at all. This just presents an operator that can make Echo's life more difficult. So you're still going to get constantly pinged by an invisible camera, possibly two of them that you cannot find. You're still going to get lit up and drunk by this drone that you possibly cannot find. None of that goes away. But now we just have another thing in Dokkaebi's sleeve that she can use to make her stronger. So I don't know.
And the whole thing is that if Maestro isn't played, then you play Echo, and if Echo isn't played, then you play Maestro. Dokkaebi counters Maestro, right? She shouldn't also counter Echo. There should be some sort of different play, because they fit the same role. They have two cameras. you need to use utility to destroy them somehow, right? Whether it's bringing an IQ to find it, or throwing an EMP, or drone in to find the Echo drone. And with the Maestro, the reason that's so much less depressing to deal with is because you're taking damage and you can see where you're taking damage from. And you can deal with it from many, many more things. You can map it, sledge it, nade it, anything that goes boom. It's much, much easier to deal with an Evil Eye than an Echo drone that saps you once and then just skeets away underneath a cupboard or something, right?
Yeah.
It comes out to bully you 20 seconds later.
Yeah.
So when you do the Dokkaebi call on a plant, at least at higher levels or in competitive, you can mask the plant with the Dokkaebi call because Maestro can't be on his drones or on his Evil Eyes. You then counter that by sitting on top of a Mute Jammer. Mute and Mossy is already about as much in meta as they can be. So It won't do anything for that at all. But it hurts everyone else that doesn't play in that super coordinated team because you can't save the day anymore driving your Echo drone in and stopping the diffuser at the last second, right?
Yep.
So I don't know, like now planting against an Echo, if you have a Dokkaebi alive, it's not that scary. You call, you plant.
Yep.
You're definitely going to get the plant down.
Yep. And maybe, I guess to play devil's advocate here, maybe that will limit the amount of calls you get as like the roamer. Like Dokkaebi now has to say, I have to save at least one call for the plant. So yeah, maybe that could work out to make it a little bit less frustrating. Last thing I want to say about the test server patch notes, Ela buff. Everybody's asking for this, but I want to remind everybody that Ela,
what demon she was.
Yes, I want to remind everybody of a couple of things. First of all, Ela's grid bump mines are pretty annoying. They're not as annoying as a goo mine. We already had that discussion last week, but they're pretty annoying. And also, the Ela is the third highest wind delta operator according to the last wind delta we have. So they're literally buffing the defender with the third highest wind delta. And they're buffing their fragging capability. Like this is in my opinion, a big buff.
You've got some.
This isn't like a
Ela pre-nerf PTSD though.
Maybe that's where this is coming from. Again, it kind of brings me back to like there are things in the game that are okay where they're at now, but if you see that picked more, become a problem in my opinion. Dokkaebi's one of those. I think Ela's one of those, and I think Legion is one of those. Legion's got a 70% pick rate. If it wasn't for that, if Legion had a 40% pick rate, those goo mines are not nearly as bad in my opinion. But the fact that I'm running into multiple goo mines in 7 out of 10 attacking rounds, that's a problem in my opinion.
I mean,
so I think I'm afraid that we could go to the same place with Ela.
It's a big enough problem that it's top of your year 5 wish list. Which I found funny last week, but I entirely agree with you. He's a pain.
So what if we pull the same ideas you thought about with Dokkaebi? What I think buffing her SMG is going to make more people play her SMG because the biggest issue I have with Ela right now is the shotgun. That thing shreds, and her playing like server stairs, blue stairs, and bank with that thing. Either you nade her or you lose. Like you're not pushing in to kill her, right? I almost want the SMG to be good enough that Ella's get arrogant again and run around trying to fight everything, because at least then I have a chance to deal with it. But that shotgun playing close, no.
Yeah, but my counter argument to that would be like I guess I'm okay with things being extremely strong situationally. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like if Ela, I know Ella's shotgun is really strong. They just nerfed it. It was so strong. But still, you're putting Ela into a situational strength instead of instead of an SMG that's a laser strength that and there's no buff that you can do to an operator that will increase their pick rate as much as just simply increasing their fragging capability. Like if you buff an operator's utility, the average player is going to look at that and be like, huh, cool. But if you buff an operator's fragging capability, the average player will look at that and be like, all right, I'm interested. You've got my attention. Let me try this out. That's my fear with Ela.
What about a reduced because Ela does suck to play as, and you know, obviously at one point it was ridiculous when she first came out, and it did, if you recall, take quite a while for it to improve, for her to be nerfed. But I wonder if half of the problem was just, or is just, the magazine. If maybe you could... Obviously, some of the intention behind her design as an operator was that she could handle multiple enemies with an SMG.
Multiple teams.
With an SMG, not an LMG like Maestro has. But maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe just reduce the magazine capacity down to something more reasonable or even lower, and then reduce the recoil in line with other SMGs. Would it be that much of a problem to have, I don't know, 25? I think a lot of people would accept a really low magazine count and actually just have a playable operator, because for the average person, she's not that playable.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I just think that was step so far away from what they intended. Yeah, like we're never going to see them make the Alda a 50 round or a 30 round magazine, right? Like that's never going to happen, because he has an LMG, right? But the two most scary things on a weapon is the fire rate and the magazine size. Because if the fire rate is high, then you're very likely to get a headshot, almost no matter how bad the recoil is. And the higher the magazine is, the longer you can sustain this high chance of getting that headshot, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think they're going to mess with the fire rate, which maybe they should. Maybe they should put it closer to what it used to be, but a little bit closer to a normal gun. So it isn't this like sewing machine of death. It's not the play to just make the recoil random side to side. Find something else to nerf it with. I'm okay with it being on the secondary SMGs, because I kind of hate the idea that people run those as primary weapons. But even the SMG-12 is ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
If they are more than, if you can't knife them, then you should probably use another weapon at that. Like,
you mentioned the CZ earlier, and now you mentioned the SMG-12. Let me throw this at you and just get you guys' thoughts on this. I agree with you. I think that the CZ's sights are atrocious, and I wish something would be done with that, especially for Callie's benefit. The SMG-12, the recoil on that. But is there any part of you that fears them buffing those weapons, because now you have to worry about Boss G ACOG?
No.
Okay, do you remember how the SMG-12 used to be initially? It was a primary weapon.
Had an ACOG.
Wouldn't there, if it got back to that point, the Boss G ACOG, in my opinion, would be a problem. If you could justify bringing the Boss G ACOG on Vigil, spawn peek and put somebody to, 20 health? Spawn peek, put somebody at 20 health. Unless you land a headshot, then they're dead. But, let's say you put them to 20 health, and then you run around with your SMG-12 and just murder everybody with one of the highest DPS output guns in the game. To me, that doesn't feel right to me. I feel like you're running into the same thing you were talking about with smoke at that point.
So I would make the vertical recoil way more, right? Like, it has to be difficult to control, of course. But the side-to-side recoil doesn't make it difficult. It just makes it random. That's the problem, because if you and I were to have a fight at 20 meters with an SMG-12, both of us, once we get past the first two shots, it's going to be luck of the draw who wins. And that's not the way it should be decided. I'd rather have two immensely overpowered guns, and then the better person wins, or the better player. I don't like luck being that part. There's so many other things you have to consider, right? You have to keep track of gadgets, placements, where are people, communication, everything. At least let the one thing that you can control as a player be in your control. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
No, I agree with you. I guess, the only reason I mentioned that is maybe I throw Boss G ACOG into one of those things that's fine unless it's viable and picked a lot. Then it becomes maybe infuriating. You know what I mean? But no, I don't necessarily think that. It's just something that I've thought about before, is that, the Boss G having an ACOG now could limit what they can potentially do with the CZ or the SMG-12, because now now you've linked the balancing of Callie, Vigil, Togepi, and Warden. All four of those operators are tied together when it comes to balancing as far as at least one of their weapons.
But in all fairness, none of us chose to give them all the same gun.
True. Yeah, that was not our decision.
No one says that, at least not from us, I assume, that you couldn't mix and match some of those guns around again.
True.
I understand it on maybe base operators. Maybe it can't be done legally. I don't even know if it can be done legally in others. If I don't know. I guess they've never truly been bought. They've always been earned with in-game credits or something. So I don't know if you can change that or
interchange
or
weapons. I'm pretty sure they could. They could interchange weapons.
Okay.
I can't go into exactly why I believe that, but I'm pretty sure they can. Let me just say that.
But also, how about not giving them access to certain attachments as well? Yeah, that's...
Yeah, attachment lock is interesting.
Yeah, that's the other way. But then we were looking at that as a way to improve the presence of Dokkaebi, but without improving her actual ability, so... Would you? Yeah.
I really like the idea of drastically changing all the muscle attachments and the grips and using them for balance.
I'd love an attachment overhaul.
Make the base gun kind of meh, and then make the attachments the stuff that gives it the characteristics. I know it's insane and it's probably almost impossible, and there's going to be so much work going into it. But can you imagine that, you're running an MP5 and you really want to be accurate? You put the muzzle brake on, there's almost no recoil, and you have a fairly slow ADS time, but that's the way you want to run it. And I want to run super fast ADS time, and I don't care about the recoil, so that's how I set mine up. Right now, there's such a minuscule difference in what attachment you run. It's tiny.
That's one of the coolest parts about Call of Duty Modern Warfare. That game has a ton of issues, but one of the things they got right in there is the gunsmith and just how many different attachments there are. And you can take an AK and turn it into an AK-74U or the RPK, which is like the LMG variant of the AK. And that's a really cool aspect of that game. You can do that all with attachments. And I don't think that's necessarily like the depth that you're talking about, but that's what it reminded me of whenever you were saying that.
I just basically wanted, the old school Tony Hawk energy sliders where you decide, is this a fast ADS or is it low recoil, right? Some super basic. I'm a massive gun nerd and I sucker for those things, but I just want that. I want to feel like when I put an attachment on, it makes an actual difference, and not just a little bit here or a little bit there. Sometimes it can be difficult even to tell what attachment you have on. You have to go back in and check.
Yeah, I know that because when I've compared weapons sometimes and I've put different attachments and I thought, well, there's not really a whole lot of difference, really.
Yeah.
The exciting thing, I guess, for you is that I don't know if you recall about 4 or 5 months ago there was some talk where it was officially announced that I don't know if they actually said we're not introducing any more guns, but it was like we're slowing down the introduction of new guns into the game because we've got so many in the game. Do you remember that? And part of the article, I could dig this out, but one of the things that Ubisoft expressed was that there was an option there to have not more weapons in the game, but more customization of the actual weapons in there, which really buys into what you're saying with being able to personalize the weapons a bit more. Obviously, you do need to be kind of careful with that because weapons, as we've seen even in these patch notes, are a key factor when it comes to balancing operators, how powerful their weapon is. So if you can just throw in, you have a weapon and you're throwing in an extended mag and you're running around with 80 rounds instead of 30, I mean, that's a problem. But there is, I think, an opportunity with less guns, new guns being introduced into the game to do that, and Ubisoft have actually expressed that. So, as an option.
That's a good point. Yeah. What's funny to me, and I'm sure you experienced this, Zoronic, when you're streaming, but people get so upset when you don't run the same weapon attachments that they do. Have you ever had anybody in your streams why aren't you running muzzle brake on Buck? I'm leaving. Unfollowed, unsubscribed. You don't run muzzle brake on Buck. That's it. I'm no longer a friend of yours. People get so upset. You really want to trigger people? Do a stream where you run nothing but red dot.
And long barrel. I mean, then I'd be triggered myself. But yeah, people are emotionally invested in what attachments other people than themselves run, which is weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I get triggered every time I see a heavy barrel, but that's just because mathematically it just doesn't make sense.
Right.
Like the argument of, well, the gun doesn't have recoil. No, well, making less recoil less is still better than making a gun longer and no difference.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't get why people are that invested, and often you can't tell the difference. So,
well, the fact of the matter is that there are different benefits to different attachments.
Yeah.
So
and they're the same on every gun.
You can't just blanketly say like,
no,
you're an idiot for running compensator on buck instead of muzzle because that's not true. There may be some characteristic that I appreciate out of comp over muzzle. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
That's just that's an ignorant thing to say, in my opinion.
Well, let's explain it for anyone confused. So the compensator will reduce the diamond. The diamond is the spread, the way that your recoil works in Siege, right? So the compensator will mainly reduce that. The flash hider will reduce the diamond a little bit and reduce the first shot recoil a little bit. The muzzle brake will massively reduce the first shot recoil and the recenter time. So that's all you need to decide which one to pick. The silence on the long barrel are there for memes, and that's fine if you want to run them. They don't do much. But the three others are super simple. That's why muzzle brake is great on pistols and on DMRs, because recenter time. It's the same reason some people run them on buck. I do, for example, run muzzle brake on buck because when I lose the recoil, it goes back to center quicker. So that's the only reason I run it. But if you run compensator, your overall recoil is going to be smaller, right? Like longer into the spray. And that goes for every single gun. So then you can quite easily decide which one you wanna put on. It's not like the muzzle brake is a different muzzle brake on, the Alda versus the 416. It's the same exact stat that it goes in and changes.
It's just the nature of the recoil is different between weapons. Yeah, I feel like those attachments, the more I'm sat here thinking about it, I just feel that they're not really fully developed conceptually within there's an opportunity there with just listening to you talking about what the different attachments do to actually develop upon that so much more and to do and to make it much clearer. For example, the recentering of the muzzle brake. I remember making a video on that literally about 2.5-3 years ago where I noticed that, but that wasn't announced until maybe 6 months ago. That sort of really became public that it did that. Now I'm sure pro players and really keen ranked players were aware of that particular fact, but it wasn't obvious. A lot of people weren't quite sure on the difference between that and the flash hider. They both seem to reduce vertical recoil, and so I think there's an opportunity there to just go in and revamp attachments, maybe introduce a few more and give people that opportunity to really make not a bespoke weapon, but something that really fits their kind of play style.
And at the minimum, put them in the game next to the attachment. When you read on the attachment, like I run laser on a lot of things, and there's this idea that just because you can see a red dot on the wall, they clearly instantly know where you are, right? That I don't believe that's true. You can't really triangulate where people are just by one dot. There will be a few times where, yes, if you put it on a door frame, they can figure out you're probably in that room on the door, then you put it next to it. But the laser has an immense impact on your hip fire spread, right? Like a very, very big impact. And on certain guns that already have low hip fire, it can be insane. If you meet a guy in a hallway and you both ADS at the same time, I'm already halfway through, spraying and landing the shots before I'm ADS'd. Whereas they have to be way further into their ADS. And then when you combine it with angled grip, it's kind of a double whammy. So if you play fast and you move around a lot, then it can really help. But there's a lot of people confused about what it does. Even if you go and read on it, I think it says something with it reduces your hip fire spread. Cool, yeah. But explain what is that?
What percentage? I don't even know. Exactly. What percentage is it?
Well, I don't know. I don't know how many people are confused about the crosshair in Siege, but I don't know if everyone understands that your bullet will always land within the crosshair no matter what. Your bullet is locked to never going past the size of your crosshair. Right? So the 4 white dots you have in your screen, your bullet will never go outside of
That's
that.
true. So, like for example, with the spread of the shotgun, or you're hip firing a weapon,
Yep.
that denotes where you're the spread.
I think there's a lot of people that don't know that it can't go outside of that. It's hard locked to that. So that's why when you move, it gets wider, but it'll still never get outside of that. It's not like CS where your crosshair and your recoil isn't linked together.
Yeah. For example, with the recent changes to the shotguns like the FO12, that's denoted by a change in the reticle. So it opens, and you then know that your next shot is going to have a larger spread. It's going to land within that area instead of within that area.
A lot of those things should be explained in game very, very simply and in plain text when you go through setting your weapons up and stuff like that. I feel like you should have that forced into your decision making. Because if everyone learns it and understands it, it kills a lot of misconceptions and makes everyone a little bit more, I don't know, educated on their picks and why they do it. I think that's a good thing.
I'll be right back, chaps.
I agree.
I'll be right back.
Sure. Pete, are you okay if we move into DDoSing while you're gone, and you can chime in when you get back? I guess
I think he is.
I tell you what, while he's gone, let's talk about something you had on the agenda, and that was having fun playing the game. You just had that kind of note in there. I just kind of wanted to see what you were thinking as far as that.
Well, that came out kind of after a talk on stream a couple of days ago. Well, it happens quite often, but it's so people come in and they have this idea: how do I go from this rank to this rank, or why my friends are lower rank, or like there's so many worries about things, right? People want to go in and do aim training, play aim labs, or what they're called, those maps. And I had a long rant about I don't get why you're so worried about going from Gold 1 to Plat 3, playing 3 hours of Kovac. You don't have a goal of going pro, right? Let's say that's the question. You're an average dude. You come home from work or school and you want to sit and have fun playing a game. Why are you spending time outside of the game warming up for half an hour on your aim when you could have spent that in-game playing and enjoying and learning and still getting something out of it, right? I don't think everyone is chasing like the highest potential elo, and if you get to a point where you're chasing the elo over having fun in that game, I think you kind of lose, even if you get there. It just, I don't get that hunt, and don't get me wrong, I want to get the diamond every season. I want that charm because it's been like that since season 1, and I'm never quitting that. The day I can't get the diamond is probably when I stop Siege. So it's important for me to get there as well, but I'm never going to let it get to a point where I don't enjoy playing the game for that. I don't see an issue with playing unranked and messing around with friends that are either way better than me or way worse. And then playing some off-meta stuff, testing out some dumb things, right? I think some people have gotten so extremely serious, especially in ranked. I'm sure you've experienced the same, where people get so frustrated. Like 1 round in, they're screaming at each other or raging over, why are you picking this operator? Why aren't you doing this? No reinforce here, Jimmy. No over there. I seen this in Pro League. What about you just, chill up a little bit and then play the game for laughs and giggles? I think people forget it's a side hobby for 99% of people.
Well, you're talking to the most chill R6 player in the world. Like,
really?
I never get wound up playing this game.
roll the clip.
Honestly, like what you're saying is like hitting me hard here, because like I'm in a slump right now. This is kill death wise. This is by far my worst season I've ever had.
Same, I think.
And now I will attribute some. I have a little bit of a disclaimer to throw out that I tried for a large portion of this season switching to a gamepad instead of a keyboard. I'm now back on keyboard, but I will blame that a little bit, because that was definitely a learning curve, and I jumped straight into ranked. It wasn't like I spent 2 weeks with it.
Does it feel better to use that as an excuse?
What's that?
Does it feel better when you use the excuse?
I mean, it doesn't feel better. I mean, hear me out. I'm going to blame myself plenty, but I will say that was definitely a factor because it was tough. It was tough to go from playing on a keyboard to leaning with an analog stick.
Why would you do that?
That was a.
I don't understand the logic in. I think I used a gamepad when I switched to PC, and I was like, eventually it just annoyed me because I didn't have enough keys. You don't have enough keys.
Okay, so what I wanted to try it for, well, first of all, Mint uses one, and whenever I was down at the Dark Zero house, I watched him and how he has his keys laid out, and like me and BC were talking, and we both kind of agreed while watching him, like if we could go back, that would probably be the preferred way to play Siege because of the lean mechanic. His keys are the same as far as movement, but there's an analog stick on the side right here on his thumb, and for him it's a D-pad. For me, it was an analog stick, and he leans with that. So so Pete, how do you lean and strafe at the same time? How do you accomplish that movement?
Hold D and E together. By the way, I used to use a gamepad, so I know what you mean. And there's a space bar below that, isn't there?
Yeah, you fat finger it in order to do that. I've never been able to do that effectively, and different people have different ways. Like if I'm standing straight up and I'm standing on a door sill and I want to peek this guy and lean and strafe at the same time to get the fastest peek mechanic possible, I guess you could say, then I had no way of doing that, and I still don't because I couldn't fat finger effectively. I've heard that Bolo has Q and E reversed so that he can accomplish this, and that makes sense. I mean, it would be really weird to do now, but if you think about it, he can strafe with A, and while he's strafing, he can use his index finger to push E and lean that way. And that makes complete sense to me. A lot of people have assigned it to their mouse, so that was my goal with that. But that's getting on a whole different tangent. To get back to Zeronic's point about having fun playing the game, man. I'm in a slump like I've never experienced before, and I do feel a little bit maybe added pressure as being a little bit of a creator, and I feel like there's a little bit more pressure there. There's probably shouldn't be, but I do feel that. Whether that's right or wrong, that's the honest truth. But I understand like where people are coming from, like to a certain degree. But you know what's really saved me, and honestly, probably where I'm going to spend the majority of my time for the remainder of the season is unranked. Like unranked is now my solo queue playlist. Instead of going into ranked and just losing to 5 stacks and getting really frustrated with my team and my randoms, I'm just going to go into unranked and work on the mechanics that I'm trying to work on so that I don't go in the next season on such a slump. That's kind of my mindset right now.
Sounds like you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself as well when this is meant to be a pastime that you enjoy.
Exactly, Pete. Exactly.
Yeah, I just feel
that's what Zeronic was talking about. Right. You were gone. Right. We changed the topic to having fun playing the game, Pete.
So we're in a bit of a different position where playing the game is a job, right? And I guess it's a little bit different being a bit stressed if you don't get the content. If you don't want to all of a sudden go from playing at a certain level to playing 5 levels below that's just not it, right? People know you for something. They will notice if there's a decrease or an increase in skill. But there's no way that you're ever going to continuously keep climbing with the same speed. You're going to hit plateaus no matter what, right? And normally you learn things, you get to a peak, and then you fall a little bit under that peak when you apply all of the things you've learned. Then you climb more to a new peak, fall back again, and apply things. So like every learning curve has this spike, and then it levels out for a while. But I bet you if you went to, play Siege for a day and you literally turned off Shadow Play, no stream, no nothing. There was no way for you to ever prove or record anything, and you just played the game. You probably play 2 times better than you do now.
You're probably right. And
I do the same with stream, right? Chances that I shouldn't take.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Streaming is really difficult, even more than Shadow Play streaming, because even if you're used to it, in my opinion, there's still another thing in your mind that's going on. That's where you're not doing 100% of your focus.
You play more aggressive than perhaps you should at times. I know if I need to record some clips, instead of holding an angle and doing the right things, sometimes I'm like if you get say 2 kills in a round and you think that's not really, I could you want to try and go and push and get a 3rd or a 4th. Like I had this exact thing yesterday where I was trying to push for an ace and I got killed, and it was just me being an absolute idiot trying to like create a good clip. Now that was in unranked. But yeah, you put pressure on yourself, and it does make the game less enjoyable. And actually, I think one of the things that helps me, because I don't really like solo queuing, to be honest, because I do get kind of frustrated. Again, I was solo queuing a little bit yesterday, and it's what I find I'll do is I'll be like, oh, what a douche move, blah, blah, blah. In my head, I'm not saying that aloud. And then I take about 5 seconds, because I'm sat here on my own, and I think, do you know what? As the kill cam's playing out, I think I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But what improves it is if you could just play with one other person, so that solo queue time becomes chat with friend time, and Siege is just something that's happening in the background that you two are enjoying. And like I have a friend that I play. We often just play with 2 of us, and we're giving call outs in game, but we're talking about what he's up to, his love life, this, that, and the other, and it's just it's less focus on actually I must win and playing really sweatily.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Pete. And something I need to do more is just have fun, like you were saying, Zeronic. Just have fun playing the game, but what is fun for me is getting better. Like that's really fun for me. It's frustrating at the same time, but like for me, what's fun is logging on and saying, okay, today I'm going to work on my peaks. I want to be able to, peak more effectively. I'm going to work on, challenging things and being able to pre-fire more or something like that. That's where the game is really fun to me, but it's also like kind of frustrating at the same time. You know what I mean?
I really get it. Like, my main joy is to be better now than I was half a year ago in Siege, right? Like, I want to see an improvement. I want to learn more. And we talked about this last time. The thing that makes Siege great is the fact that you can't master it. There's always more. And we're chasing that ever, like, we're never going to get there. But we can at least improve. I just think some people, if you take the analogy of, for example, working out to try and get stronger or bigger, some people out there play Siege like they're lifting 400 kilos every morning until their muscles pop. And then they just end up frustrated and can't do anything after, right? If you want to get better, there's actual ways of doing it. Like, you can plan your way there, and you can have some structure to it, so you can measure if you're getting better. Because people suck at data in general, right? We can't tell that we got better because we're playing against better people. So now we just think we've gotten worse. But what we really did was earn our way up to play against people that were better than us, and now we lose again.
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
So, like, we're terrible at figuring that out. I felt like I was amazing back in year 1 when I played in gold. I really thought I was the bomb, right? Then the second you hit diamond, you're like, dude, I'm stuck. What's happening? This thing did getting smacked by everybody. But did
you notice that in the SI playlist? I
felt like a god.
Yeah, I felt like a god in there, dude. I went in the SI playlist and I was just like, I am amazing at this game. And then I go into ranked and I'm just getting destroyed.
I think I got 2 aces in the first round. And I'm like, dude, I'm back. Let's go.
Dude,
then I check copper, silver, gold. I'm like,
that's always the challenge, man. One step forward, your competition comes with you, and then you have to adjust again. And I think that's what I'm going for, because while I am in a slump as far as KD, I'm hitting the highest MMR I've ever hit.
There you go.
This season.
There's your answer.
Well, so you just explained it.
It's not night and day, though. Like, I'm still in Plat 2, but I'm like flirting with Plat 1. You know what I mean? And I've never really been this close before. And I'm playing up here the whole season. Instead of just like hitting mid Plat 2 and then sliding back into Plat 3, like, I've been in Plat 2 all season. And I haven't adjusted. I have not adjusted.
As long as your KD is above 1, it just means you're playing against people that aren't as good as you. That's it, right? Like, ideally, you want to get to the level where your KD is around 1. Because if your KD is 2.0, then like you're winning way more than you should, and you should be playing at a higher level.
In fact, if you can get your KD to 0.5, you're doing really well.
You've got friends who love you. Well, I usually, like, the last few seasons I've been like 1.1, 1.2, and this season I'm actually like currently I'm at like a 0.9. So there's something wrong there. And again, I'm gonna blame some of it on gamepad, but I think the big thing is I have not adjusted yet to playing at a level that I haven't in previous seasons. So I'm getting there. I'm starting to get to where, like, I'm crawling back, but at the end of the day, you know, like I said, I'm gonna try and spend like the remainder of the season unranked and see if I can get better. So, you guys want to talk about the big DDoS lawsuit? Ubisoft is clapping back against the DDoSers.
Yeah,
this was a story. The first place I saw it was Polygon, and they reported that. Long story short, there was a huge DDoSing problem in Ubisoft in Rainbow Six Siege. Ubisoft put out a statement. As soon as they did that, it was a 93% reduction. And part of that statement was that we are going to take legal action against these people. And now we're actually seeing the legal action. They are suing the companies that ran services where people could sign up and then use those services to DDoS Rainbow Six Siege servers.
So, brilliant.
I don't know how many people understand like what this actually means, but it's pretty damn big. One of the main websites that were used for this has been sued. I think 4 or 5 individuals have been sued. The lawsuit is public. I think it's called a civil lawsuit, right? So they're fully public, and you can go and read everything about it. It was the same with the BBC cheater a couple of months ago.
By the way, that was weird. But yeah, we'll talk about that another time. There was something not quite right about that article, but anyway, I digress. Go on.
The issue happened in September, right, with the DDoSing, and we're only just in the start of the year, and the lawsuit is already ongoing. Mm-hmm. That's impressive. That's kind of quick, because like these things can take a long, long time. I mean, it's not like it's gonna get fixed overnight, but I'm pretty sure they're not gonna mess around with DDoSing while this is going on, because this is a damn scare, especially like the ramifications this can have for people doing it compared to the money that they made off it. It's not gonna. They're not gonna go away with money from this one. Let's put it like that.
So how will this pan out? I mean, assuming that Ubisoft are successful with this, I mean, we're not talking, with it being a civil case, we're talking fines, aren't we? Not imprisonment and stuff like that, or because it's not a criminal.
Well, so I assume some of them are going to be criminal because it's damage to company assets and stuff like that, right? And server stuff. I think one of the things in one of the other DDoS lawsuits from, I think it was Riot that did it. It was damage of government property or something, because some of the servers were owned by a state or something.
Yeah.
So they try to find whatever hits the hardest.
Mm-hmm. So it says the lawsuits, so it says that they were charging, so they're targeting that company, and it says they were charging $30 a month. But interestingly, a screenshot, this is from the Polygon article, showed Fortnite, FIFA, Call of Duty were also targets. Mm-hmm. So I think what would be cool is if these developers or publishers got together and just stood on this one issue in unity against this kind of action. And how do you guys feel about the actual individual perpetrators that sat at home doing that? Do you think that there should be any action against them? Should they be getting letters, like a warning, or should there be something more?
This is the big moral question. Is it the poacher, or is it the poacher, or is it the buyer? I mean, I don't know. I'm a gullible mess when it comes to that. I think the buyer is the real issue, because I'm not gonna judge the guy who made that program. Maybe he's trying to feed his family. I'm not gonna blame him for that. It's like the guy who shoots the rhino to sell the horn. It's the person who goes out of his way to buy that thing. Sure, the other guy chose to do it, and it was a bad choice. But maybe you live in a place where you can't get a job, but you're really good at coding, and you figured out you can do this, and you can make a lot of money real quick. I don't know how mad I can be at that guy. Maybe he has a good reason. He should be stopped from doing it, sure. And I kind of do enjoy the irony and the karma in someone destroying so much for so many other people getting sued into smithereens. But at the end of the day, I'm more angry at the 15-year-old jerks out there who go in and buy this to use it.
They're both culpable, though, aren't they? They're both culpable.
Yeah, but they will look at doing it again, right? We can remove the seller. The buyer's going to stay.
I go the other direction, though, because okay, if I'm if I'm the judge and this court comes and this comes to me, I 100% would be more likely to issue a severe punishment to a group of individuals or a company who maybe made thousands or millions of dollars off of this and orchestrated this plan. And it's almost like premeditated murder versus manslaughter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The 15-year-old kid, he's emotional.
And
like I would hate to see any 15-year-old.
This is only here for one thing. There's no legitimate reason to have. I mean, this has been designed for one thing and one thing only.
Exactly.
To take down servers.
Exactly. And I mean, I just hate. I would hate to ruin for some 15-year-old kid's life to be ruined, and for them to have a permanent criminal record or something like that because of a video game.
There's a good chance that these are 15-year-old kids who made this, though.
Yeah. I mean,
because if you are this good of a programmer and you know what you're doing, and you're an adult or have some sort of experience with this, you probably wouldn't chance it. You would probably, like, the website that is getting sued also put that they were closed down because of Ubisoft, Microsoft, and Europol on their own website. They put up a fake cease and desist on their website with Europol tagged in. And I remember we tagged Europol on Twitter asking, wait, is this a thing? And Europol responds back going, we don't know anything about this. So, sure, that case with these guys should definitely be, like, it's also way easier to just give them a massive fine and scare everyone else away from doing it. But there should be some kind of lesson out there for, it's not an excuse.
What about losing your account?
15-year-olds.
What about losing your account and getting a letter sent to your address?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
How about that?
I support that.
Because then you're not taking legal.
Cheating is the only way to go.
Yeah, because your point just now about it is easier to target the provider than target 1 million individuals. It is.
Yeah, 100%.
So locking or killing those accounts that they know are 100% categorically were involved in procuring those services to take down the servers, and maybe a letter that's just sent to the person responsible for the internet service in your household. Just address it like that, and then explain what's been happening, and that it won't be tolerated any further, and that everything's on the table.
And every time they play the game, they have to wear a bright pink uniform, so they are the easiest kill in the world.
And all their weapons only have one bullet before they needs to be reloaded.
You could just put all the DDoSers on one server.
Oh my god!
So they can do that, right? They can force matchmake. That could actually be fun.
Yeah. Oh, I would love it.
Yeah, CS:GO too.
Leave them all in there. Everyone that's been boosted by a cheater, instead of removing their elo and all of that, give them their own ranking system.
Dude,
it's just,
could you imagine?
Yeah, it's gonna be like a sad smiley, and the smiley just gets sadder and sadder. It'd be great. They get forced into their own matchmaking, all the boosted by cheaters, all the DDoS. Let's just get to play with it.
It's like an arms race. It's like the Olympics of hackers. We want to see who the best hacker is, who comes out of this on top.
Then we invite them all to Invitational, and we have a show with all the worst people. Let's do it.
That's good. I like that. All right. Well, anything else in the DDoS? Do you guys want to move on here?
I'm happy with it. That's all I want to say. I'm glad.
Right.
Yep.
Let's move on to the esports update. And pretty much the same as last week, only a little bit closer, I believe. You got Team Empire in first place with 10 points, Rogue in second place with 9 points, G2 in third place with 9 points, BDS in fourth place with 7 points, Forz with 6 points. That would be fifth place there, and then sixth place is Chaos with 6 points, seventh place is Vitality with 6 points, and then eighth place is Navi with 4 points. That's okay. Well, what do you guys think about the EU standings there?
Navi's got to wake up.
Yeah.
Like, really got to wake up, because the way they performed previous to the way they've performed now is a little bit embarrassing, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sure, they've been playing against good teams, but there's no excuse, and they know that as well. If you see the way they've been reacting to their losses on Twitter, they're not defending it at all. They know what's up. I mean, G2 almost got reverse sweep yesterday by them, so that was kind of interesting. It was the 5-0 we've seen them do before, where they're 5-0 in console and almost lost. But I don't know, that they need to wake up. Empire, Rogue, and G2 in the top is not too surprising.
The good thing that Na'Vi has going for them is the separation between last and first is only 6 points. It's not too late for them to make this up. They still have plenty of time to do that. And that's really the story in EU for me. Is it's close. It is a close race. You've got 5th, 6th, and 7th. All 3 have 6 points. And then, the 4th place team only has 7. So, 4 places there with 1 point of separation. Like, it's anybody's race in EU right now. And I think that's going to make for a really entertaining remainder of the season.
That's a good point, actually, because after the next play day, you could see massive changes in that table, couldn't you? Because there's there's so little points in it, and we're only a third of the way through.
The round differences are a little bit rough for Vitality, though.
Yeah, that is a good point.
Being -12 there on 5 games that's hard to catch up.
What happened to them? Did they get absolutely smashed a couple of times? Yeah, look. 2-7-1.
Yesterday was a bit of a slaughter, let's put it like that. And so, their Monday games just don't go so well. We figured out.
Let me throw a concept at you guys here that I think, and I'm looking at Na'Vi here, but I think this applies to every Pro League team that I've seen so far. It's show me a Pro League team that has had success and then hasn't almost immediately followed that success with a slump. And you might point to G2. G2 did probably have the longest run, and we're seeing a Team Empire run right now. Although you could maybe argue that they're in a slump right now. I mean, maybe they're having the attitude that they're only going to perform at the LANs, at the majors, and we'll see at the Invitational if that's the case. But okay, Na'Vi just wins Pro League Season 10. They win the finals. Great performance by them. Here we are. They're in last place in NA. That's a slump. You look at Space Station. Space Station had an incredible run. They runners up at Oga Pit, wins the U.S. Nationals, and now in my opinion, they're not playing to their standard in Pro League. Now they've always kind of struggled in best of ones, but you look at G2, obviously win back-to-back invitationals. You throw in a Paris major there. You throw in a season final. That was a nice stretch there, but nobody would argue that they're in a slump. I think that what we're seeing here in Pro League at this point is a bunch of young men who are maybe experiencing success for the first time and don't handle it well. And I don't want to make that sound like I'm criticizing people, but any athlete, any artist, the best thing that you can have is a constant hunger. And there's a term that's referred to by musicians called the sophomore slump. And that refers to a lot of musicians will have a great debut album, and then their second album will be not so good. And the concept is that they're not hungry anymore. They got that big paycheck from the first one. They let the fame get to their head, and then they didn't sit down and write a good second album. And I feel like we see that a lot in Pro League. The worst thing that you can do in Pro League, Rainbow Six Siege, is not be hungry. And that sounds harsh, and I might get some blowback from some pros for saying that, but I think we're seeing that.
I think there's something in the psychology of that, because if you are an average guy who's got really good at gaming, and I mean you've got so good that you are winning. This is not my business, but I'm just talking generally about any esport. If you're starting to win, hundreds of thousands of dollars, where you are when you've won hundreds of thousands of dollars, I don't think that you would necessarily have the same amount of hunger as someone who's like a startup, who's kind of poor, who's putting in all the hours, sat at home in their bedroom. It's that journey from being, an average person, or maybe, not particularly wealthy, to becoming actually like, you could be 20 years old and you could look at your bank balance and see $500,000 or something like that. How on earth are you going to be the same amount of motivated? And I think in sports, and I think it's true with esports too, a change in mentality of just a few percent, I think, could be everything. Just not training as much, just not spending as much time thinking about what you're going to do or what the opponents are doing in traditional sports. Maybe just not pushing yourself for that sprint. Maybe in soccer, like closing someone down. Maybe you would have closed someone down, and because you're not in the right sort of headspace, you're not doing that. And I think that transfers over to esports too. If your headspace is just a few percent less than what it was to get you to be there, then maybe that could actually have an impact. Because I've been thinking about that a lot. Like, I was in the shower the other day thinking about this exact thing. That's how sad I am. That, having all that money, it must have an impact in what you're prioritizing in life.
I don't think the money matters at all.
I think when just one thing I would say is the reason I think it does matter is because I know myself, like, if I've got nothing, I'm more likely to put everything into something. But if I've started,
yeah, sure.
But once you're comfortable, it's not about like driving around in a Lamborghini. But once you're comfortable, it's like you don't need to you don't have that fight. That's kind of...
I 100% know what you mean, and I think that fight is missing because of another reason. And so Flank said something that he was afraid he was going to get backlash for, so I'm probably going to get slaughtered now. But let's be fair. Most people go from being average Joes, they go to school, maybe they even quit school, maybe they don't even care to go to school. They live at home. There's nothing wrong with that if you're young. I guess there's nothing wrong with it even if you're old.
An OAP.
But they
I'm with your mum.
They just sit there, they chill, they play and play and play. And at some point, they realize they're a little bit better than everyone else. They get on a team, and within 3 months, within 2 years, whatever, they go from having a friend group of 5 people that they play with every now and then to winning one of the biggest events in esport, or maybe not in esport, but a very, very big event in esport. And literally achieving everything they plan to do. And that all happened in almost no time. What's your next goal? I think that's the problem. If you look at Navi, they're all fairly young, and they're lovely guys. But you won Pro League. That's what you wanted to do. What now? Well, sure you want to win Invitational, but now you assume that that's something that isn't that difficult, because you've already this quickly achieved that goal. So all the air kind of goes off the balloon, and it's not like any of the players were at least I assume so, struggling to stay alive. This isn't like you don't plan to become a pro to pay your bills. So the money is extra. You wouldn't do it if you couldn't afford to pay rent, for example. At least that would be extremely unmature to plan an esport career as the way to pay your bills, right? Because it's volatile, and you're going to get replaced the second there's a better player with a better attitude that wants to work harder. That there isn't really anything keeping you in there except for your brand value and the stuff you can bring in match. I just see them like people that wanted to finish a marathon, and the second they get to the finish line, they're like, okay, I'm never doing this again. I'm done. Like we've done it. Now we're gonna walk the rest of the way. And it's not meant in a bad way. I don't blame anyone for it. I completely understand it. It's a lot of work to get there, and I don't think people understand how goddamn tedious it can be to scrim every single day.
Sure.
And just get your stuff kicked in over and over and over again. And then finally figuring out what works. You bring it in there. You might win, you might lose. Then you end up winning the whole thing. Now, the day you get home, you got to let that win go. That's done. Next one. You have to see it as you have done nothing. Because if you sit there and think that you're champions or think that you're the best, it's fine to have that hunger and want to be the best. But if you ever assume that you are the best and can't be beat, you're gonna start losing. That's just how it is.
Have you ever heard? Have you ever heard people real quick? Have you ever heard people say that G2 was a lot better before they had girlfriends?
I mean, of course. Can you blame them?
I don't necessarily think that's like the blame, but I think that people are saying that G2 was better before they let it get to their head. I think that's what they're really saying. But sorry, Pete, go ahead.
I was going to say, because it's ironic. you and I have had a chat before, and you were telling me one of the guests that you would like to get on the show at some point in the future would be someone involved in sports psychology. And I know,
Yes.
I mean, that's even something that they're catching up with in you know, like traditional sports. I know Liverpool Football Club, for example, they're a really massive football club. About 5-10 years ago, they started working with someone in the UK called Dr. Peters, who is a really clever sports I don't think a psychologist. I think he has a degree in psychiatry, but I'm not entirely sure. Maybe it is psychology, but he was working with them, and it was just completely optional for the players, that the footballers, that they could go and speak to him and talk to him about their issues, and you know, he would just help them and talk through some of those issues with them. So I wonder, as esports grows, if that could be an element that does grow within that. You know, like that these,
It has to.
yeah, these orgs start getting these people in, and making them available. Because more than anything, you know, we've just sat here and talked about some of the issues that you know, might be affecting the performance of these players, but they're younger men, you know, and all this pressure, all this social media, all these expectations on them, the potential winnings if they do well. I think that is a lot to deal with as a young man. Aside,
E-girls.
yeah, aside, but like, you know,
Gotta push them all away. It's just too many, man.
But we're like, I don't know how old you are, it's ironic, but you know, Flanked and I are in our 30s now, and it's like I couldn't imagine being, say, a 20-year-old. Thinking back to how I was, you know, if I was given just a little bit of fame, how obnoxious and horrible I would have been at that time. I mean, now I'd like to think I'd be able to deal with it, but back then I don't think I would have been able to. I wouldn't have been equipped with the tools, you know, to do that. So they have to do a lot of learning very quickly, which makes me think that going forward, working with sports psychologists might be very beneficial to these players, not only in their performance, but for them and enabling them to deal with the situation they've been thrust upon. Because sometimes, like Zyronic said, it happens almost overnight. You know, you're kind of an unknown person, and now you're a champion. There's
a little bit of a dark detour on that. I'm 29 by the way. There's a little detour that might be worth mentioning on that whole sports psychology thing, because it's not just banter and jokes. Like there's some really, really serious aspects to it as well. There's a pretty big increase in mental health issues, right? And people are way lonelier than they were, you know, some years ago. And that becomes much worse if you get extremely famous, and that climbs, because none of the people are your friends. And that might sound rough, but they are not your friends. They don't know you. They aren't people you can share everything with, and you might feel like you can or want to, but that's not the play. Because they can throw you under the bus any day of the week if you don't perform, if you join another team, whatever it is. And all of a sudden, you thought you had these 100,000 people that all had your back. You've never met a single one of them, and they clap when you play. But there's a difference between fans and family or friends. And I'm afraid that isn't always fully considered, because it seems like people are, I mean, we're to some extent, you know, in that as well, where of course you want to have a larger following base. It's important, but you can't let that affect you too much, especially not when you play, because a downfall on you when you don't perform gets proportionally worse the higher you're rated and the more fame you get, right? And there's no learning curve for that, because if we compare it to real sport, you learn a few things when you're young. If you go out and play football, you fall, you get hurt, you get back up, you play. You learn that, okay, this hurts. Like, you know, I get worn out. If I do this too much, it's not good for me. And when you lose, the only people that are really going to judge you is the one guy in the other team that bullied you in the library. That's going to laugh a bit, and then everyone else is kind of chill with it. You still know those people. But in esport, you sit and play for 8, 12, 16 hours, whatever. There is no actual physical injury coming or anything. You just keep grinding. And then, sure, maybe you'll get carpal tunnel or something, but at least you're not going to break an arm or a leg or get worn out physically from running and overexertion. But what you might be is slowly getting lonely and lonely and stuck in this thing while getting super fucking famous.
Yeah.
And that is a really bad cocktail, which is why orgs are extremely important. So we can get some sports psychologists in, we can get some coaches in, some adult figures that can help with this stuff. And I know a lot of players are probably going to say, that's no problem, and kind of brush it off as it not being an issue. But it's damn well been an issue in other games. And they're high level professional esports, right? So if they want to go down that road and say that this isn't the problem, then fair enough. I just don't ever want to be at a spot where it was too late for that.
Yeah, it's a great point.
That is a really good point.
And I mean, I don't want to pretend that I'm some celebrity or famous or anything like that at all, but there is as much there I do deal with that, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I think
course.
that we all do to a certain degree. There's a certain the roughest lesson I ever learned as a creator is that the first time that I realized that there was a portion of the people who were watching me stream that were there to see me fail, not to see me play well.
Yeah.
And that is true every single time that I stream.
And
that's a really lonely feeling because it jades you against everybody in your stream. Even the people who are there to like watch you,
who are rooting for you
and want to enjoy your success and share your success with you. It really jades you against everybody. And it to me, I kind of equate it to like you almost like paint yourself in a corner because you're just like, okay, I'm here, I know me, but I don't know the intentions of anybody else anymore because of this following or celebrity status that I now have. Does this person want to play with me because
in a cage, right?
Yeah. Does this person want to play with me because they want to have fun with me and they like enjoy my company, or do they just want some type of clout for playing with Get Flanked
and getting a reaction out of you? As you've had that before. I hope you don't mind me bringing that up, but you have had that,
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I'm alluding to. That was a very important lesson early on. Is that like I was doing a 10-man on stream with what I thought were like viewers and fans, and it turned into something really nasty. And part of that was my fault, 100%. Like I'm not that was partly my fault. I didn't handle it well, but it was a very important lesson early on that like these people are not my friends. Like people are here to like. They will take the quickest opportunity to hurt me, and they, that's a very lonely feeling the first time you experience that.
And just what Zyronic was saying a moment ago, sometimes I don't think it's the same as someone that's practicing for an esports team, but when you're a content creator, and it's amazing, but like sometimes you can actually you can sacrifice so much, particularly when you're doing a job as you were working full time until about 18 months ago or whatever it was. You will come home and you will have an invite to go to a pub or a bar, or go to a sporting event, and it's like, sorry, I can't go tonight. And you actually end up making a lot of sacrifices like that to work the job, the hobby you love, and then you can find yourself in a lonely place because of that if you don't have someone in your immediate vicinity. Like, for example, I've got a wife at home, but who's be like, turn the bloody computer off, we're going out. It's a bit like that. Right. But like if I didn't have that, if I lived alone, I could see that sort of happening. And then that can also tie into the fact that you feel a bit like I'm not a streamer, but if you're a streamer, a bit underappreciated if you're doing that and you feel like people are out for you because you're making all those sacrifices, and it's like you're knocking your head against a wall.
I mean, it's not an easy thing, but I think it's kind of important. My YouTube editor said something really stuck with me. He's not the smartest guy in the world, but he says some smart things every now and then, and he's probably going to watch this, so he'll get me back in another one. He said you've made it now because someone on a video within a minute of it being uploaded left a dislike and a like really shitty comment, and he did it on the next video and the next video, and he had a really good point. When people go out of their way to spend time to be ready to bother you when you do stuff, then you've kind of made it. The fact that they want to try to live through your success is hilarious by doing it that way. As long as you just look at it that way, I hope that person follows forever, man. Like, he can leave that comment on every single video, because I know that I've gotten further than every time. As long as he sticks there, I'd be more upset if he stopped leaving that hateful comment every time.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, that isn't, like, he's not the person I want to be. He doesn't have anything that I could ever want. Because if he did, he wouldn't be sitting there 30 seconds into a newly uploaded video that has 2 views, right? Clicking in, going, "Ha, you stink," blah blah blah. Like, who does that? So, I'll take the AdSense for that, man. I'll take the follow, the thumbs up. Thank you.
This is quite a divergence. Is that the proper use of that word?
It is now.
This is quite a sidetrack. Yep. But I enjoyed it. No, I feel I feel better, and I honestly I agree with what I think we're all on the same page here. It is kind of a weird feeling, but I've thought about that with the pro players for a while. It's just like, it seems like, and it makes sense. Like, I think the most important thing you can say is that these are young men who are dealing with success, many of them for the first time, and there's a learning process there. And you know, I think that they can recover and learn to deal with it better, but we're seeing that now, and you know.
And your analogy about the second album or a sequel to a film, I mean, I think that might be true, but often a lot of these bands come back and have a cracking third album. So,
yes, you're absolutely right. So, NA standings, you guys want to head that direction? All right.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So NA standings, first place is Dark Zero with 13 points. Second place is TSM with 13 points. But I think that's backwards, because the round differential shows 15 for TSM. Shouldn't that mean, and they haven't played?
Is it on a head-to-head?
So
that's a shared first with TSM ahead.
Okay, but I wonder why they just
down to round differential if it's a draw at the top.
Okay,
so it's only at the end that matters.
Okay,
right now they're on a shared second or first.
So the way they have it listed is Dark Zero in first place with 13 points. Second is TSM with 13 points. Third is Space Station Gaming with 10 points. Fourth is Team Reciprocity with 7 points. Fifth is Luminosity with 5 points. Sixth is E United with 4 points. Seventh is Evil Geniuses with 3 points. And eighth is Tempo Storm with 1 point. The thing I think whenever I look at NA is it's top heavy. I mean, to me, it just looks like the top 4 teams are in it. Maybe throw Luminosity in there. I don't know, but it just seems to me like you got 4 teams at the top of NA that are fighting it out, and the rest of them aren't really showing up.
I just feel like EG really got the short end of the stick.
Oh,
rebrand, and they haven't really done too well.
The rebrand
it's a double whammy right there. Right?
This is real, right? They legitimately traded Geo for Gotcha, correct? That was a trade between them and TSM. It wasn't just like random that TSM dropped Gotcha.
I assume so. I mean, I don't know if there was more to than that, but I mean, yeah.
Well, okay. I'm not going to pile on Gotcha. He's receiving a lot of grief right now. I like Gotcha. You know, I'm not going to pile on him at all. But I mean, if we're looking at this on paper, Geo is performing amongst the best in NA, and that definitely looks like Evil Genius has received the short end of the stick on that trade. And that's obviously on the surface. I know Gotcha is, doing a lot of in-game shot calling and stuff like that. It's not painting the full picture. But yeah, that's definitely one of the big things that jumps out there, is to see EG in 7th place is kind of shocking.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, TSM, at least the 3 top teams right now are really interesting to watch.
Yeah.
So as a viewer, that matters more to me. I don't really care about who's doing well and who's on top. It's interesting, or it needs to be interesting and engaging and fun matches, right?
Yeah.
So I really enjoy watching an Pro League. At least it's super different. Where EU the last couple of days have been going very forth and back, which leaves it a little bit to, did this team win because they just outplayed the other, or was it a fault of the other one? At least in NA, it's pretty easy to tell when someone's winning.
Yeah. You guys want to move on to Latin America here?
Sure.
We got first place is Ents Esports with 9 points. Second is Team Liquid with 7. Third is FaZe Clan with 6. Fourth is MIBR with 6. Fifth is Ninjas in Pajamas with 6. Sixth is Elevate with 5. Seventh is Black Dragons with 4. And then eighth is Team One Esports with 3 points.
And we got to mention they're one game behind.
What is it?
We got to mention they're still one game behind. They will be playing. Yep. Is that tonight or is that later?
It would. It will be at the time we're recording this today at some point, right?
Yeah.
So
they have one more game before they catch up to everyone else. So they're always going to be a little bit harder for us to judge anything on. Nib's kind of fallen off, I think, and Liquid's finally. I mean, I mentioned that last time. I'm glad to see them starting to perform again.
Yeah. Where did Ents come from? Is that
they were like around mid, weren't they? Like,
yeah, I don't remember them
last season
necessarily performing this well previously, and I remember them from a couple lands where they didn't do much, or maybe I'm thinking of Team One. I'm sorry, but I mean, you look at the 4 teams from Latin America that are going to be at the Invitational, and they're 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So very little separation between those teams, and then you've got Ents at the top. It seems like Latin America always is close, no matter what. Like, and that's what always makes it really entertaining. So we'll have to see how that one plays out. All right, gentlemen. Anything else you guys want to go over here?
No, I'm good. Yep.
Yeah, I think I'm. I mean, actually, should we give a little bit of a rundown of what we could potentially have planned on, like different type of guests to bring on? Because you kind of got in on that topic at some point, Pete.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking. I mean, of course, we want to have a few streamers. We want to have some pro players on, some content creators, some stuff, like people in the Siege community. But for me, it was super important that we tried to bring some outside Siege experience in, whether that be from try to bring someone on that's, I don't know, as you know, sports psychologist, or maybe some badass SF guy that knows, you know, like, how do you get past these things, or why is it you sit there and get angry at your PC? What can you do? That could be really interesting, because I'm at least I feel like I respond to a lot of those questions every day. It's like, how do you not get tilted when you play? So I'd really like to bring someone in like that, and some devs to both talk about, like, hopefully some detailed Siege things, or maybe just, you know, spew some ideas off each other and kind of bounce those around.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see in the comment section what people want as well. But definitely, I would like to get some devs involved. Again, I agree with you on the sports psychiatrist. If anyone knows Professor Steve Peters, who worked with the British Olympic team, put a good word in. But I think that would make for a very interesting episode. And then the usual one, I think people like to see content creators come onto these podcasts and pick their brains from time to time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think I agree with everybody you guys have mentioned. I think we're on the same page there. And I think one thing I'll mention to the audience is they're recommending people is that we're not recording live, and that gives us much more flexibility. For example, one of the guests that I would love to have on at some point are some of the artists within the communities, the cosplayers, and maybe that's not a 2-hour guest, but we could have them on for 20 minutes and talk to them about what goes into cosplay and what goes into, you know, their art. You know, I mean, a couple that come to mind to me, like South Siege, you know, Sunstark, both of them are really like people who literally dedicate their lives to Siege art. And I would love to talk to them, even for just a half an hour sometime, about, you know, what their daily life is like and what their inspiration is and just stuff like that. So, of course, you know, I want to bring on pros as well, because I think one of the best things we can do to grow Pro League is to show the personalities that exist there. And there are tons of personalities there, you know, and I would love to showcase some of those personalities on here, some. So yeah, that's kind of my wish list.
Flanked, I'd like to get a decent Pro League esport analyst on here from the Siege community.
Wouldn't that be a dream come true?
You're just out of reach, Pete. God damn it.
No, yeah. I think with some of those guests that we've just spoken about, I don't think they'd want to sit here and necessarily talk through patch notes. So I like the idea of getting the community involved with that, and maybe we could even do like a pre-recorded segment that we slot into the podcast that lasts 20 minutes, and then we get together and then do the rest of the podcast, something like that.
Yeah, I agree. We're going to keep messing around too, guys, with different segments. We've got some ideas, like the quiz segment. Let us know what you thought about that. I had a lot of fun with that, Pete. I think that would be great to continue moving forward. Again, maybe not every episode, but
yeah,
it was fun.
I've got other ideas.
I think we need to look at those rules, though, because whoever goes first is at a disadvantage. 100%.
Hang on. This is the thing. You didn't think it through.
I can hear it.
Because you won. If you go first, right, you have the benefit of choosing first as well. That's a benefit because you can, as time goes by, it will only get harder, right?
If you get to number 9, if you get to the end, that could be a benefit, but in the beginning, that's not that much of a benefit.
Hey, you answered, you buzzed in, and you won.
It seemed fair to me.
It's like when you play by the rules that you have, you're basically like Zoronic was the dealer, and I was the guy playing blackjack. Like I had a chance to bust before he had to do anything.
So, Ronick, does he sound like a bad sport to you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm up high on the podium, so he's a bit quiet, but I'm
just
happy I won. Yeah.
We can have
this is going on the wall.
Well, I think we should end it on that note, boys. Me being a bad sport and losing, I'll have to make amends for that next time that Pete comes up with a quiz. So, guys, keep an eye open on our social media, especially that Twitter. That's probably where Pete is putting out these polls and stuff whenever he's getting community answers to these quizzes and stuff. Again, that's Twitter at Logic Bomb Cast. So make sure you're following us on there. Again, this episode will be on Spotify. Hopefully it'll be on Google Podcasts as well. So we're making progress there. Hopefully iTunes will be next. And we appreciate everybody who has been giving us feedback so far.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Tell a friend.
We'll see you guys next week.
Tell your dad. See you later.